Last night we had one of the biggest television events here in the United States, and definitely the biggest sports event, which was Super Bowl. Now, I don't particularly follow American football, so I'm assuming two teams played and one won. But a lot of people here watch the Super Bowl for the commercials, right? This is not only an opportunity for leading brands to introduce new products and services to us. You know, a lot of times they're funny or sexy and controversial and so forth. Now, last night, I was watching for specifically car commercials. I thought it was a very good timing for them to introduce the electric technology to the world and to American public, because we are pivoting. We are at that point. Like, this year should be one of the biggest years for electric cars. This is where the electric cars are, you know, starting to go mainstream with the Model 3, with Chevy Bolt, Nissan Leaf, and so forth. So I was watching. I did not expect. And by the way, here's one of the more popular commercials for the Lexus LS 500. But I wasn't expecting that there would be a commercial for an electric car only, even specifically for a plug-in hybrid, because, you know, let's face it, they're not popular enough, they can't sell them enough or make them enough. Even if people were that interested, that would be a waste of their money. But I was watching to see, you know, how they're going to maybe start introducing the technology, as kind of starting to introduce the, you know, general public to the concept of electric cars, charging and so forth, self-driving technology, just a lot of things that are pretty cool that you can sort of sell to people ahead of times, you know, for the electric car revolution. Now, to my disappointment, unfortunately, I counted zero. I counted zero any type of electric car technology that was introduced. As a matter of fact, I've heard a lot of, you know, engine noises and racing and all of that stuff, which is kind of, you know, what we're trying to fight against, right? Well, I won't say fight against, but trying to phase out. So now, you know, and this was very disappointing, you know, and I usually don't do the comment of the day until the end of the show, but this kind of falls nicely in the comment of the day that one of the viewers, Ryan, submitted yesterday, and I was going to feature it already. I just thought it was a perfect fit for the story that I'm talking about right now, about the Super Bowl. He says, I hate to say it, but I'm starting to get the impression that the big auto manufacturers are putting out a few electric cars, but aren't investing in charging because they want the public to get frustrated with electric cars and give up on them. And so, you know, he makes an interesting point, because, you know, this is how it kind of felt last night. I really thought it was a missed opportunity, and almost, do they really want to move forward? Now, we kind of know that Tesla has been dragging everybody into the new age, into the, you know, age of electric cars and technologies and so forth. Then a lot of countries are also starting to move to, you know, possibly passing the laws banning the sales of gas cars by 2030 to 2040. So we kind of know where this whole thing going, but still it looks like there's such resistance from all of the main manufacturers who could have done this last night and they didn't. Hyundai, GM, Mercedes, Kia, Lexus here, they've all had an opportunity and they didn't do it. Now, I think it would be, just to address Ryan's concern, I don't think they're doing it on purpose, because I think the revolution is kind of too far away, right? They're just going to continue losing the market share to Tesla and all other car makers that are actually moving in that direction. There's a lot of money out there to be had and benefited for the, you know, those manufacturers who do produce electric cars. So I think that would be kind of silly. I guess they still don't get it, or maybe they're just waiting on the sidelines to see what happens. And I'm sure there's a maybe 50-50 split on that. On that. So, you know, I'm gonna obviously kind of keep up and see if we're kind of seeing any kind of mainstream media advertisement coming from these cars, but that's where we are. Varun in the chat room says the big auto manufacturers are waiting for a battery to get cheaper. Well, you know, why don't they just jump in and make them cheaper? I mean, somebody has to do it, right? So that's kind of frustrating. All right, so let's move on to another story. And before that, by the way, guys, let me remind you that here in the description of this video, you will find a link for my Tesla referral link, but you don't have to buy a car. Actually, all you have to do is enter your email address to sign up for their newsletters, and you and I will get entered into that little lottery that they have every week now to have an opportunity to do this, not just sit inside of this Tesla semi-truck, but also drive it around their track. You get to have fun. I I get to make a video for the rest of you guys. So if you don't mind, go to the description of this video and please just submit your email to Tesla. And by the way, while you're there, don't forget to pick up a discount code for Evanex, our sponsor, our channel sponsor, that makes aftermarket accessories for Tesla. All right, let's move on. I know I featured literally this slide a couple of days ago. I feel like I need to reuse it because we were talking about Porsche. They're expanding their facility, putting up together an assembly line to get this car, the Mission E car. It's not going to look exactly like this. This is just a concept. It's going to more look like a Panamera, four-door Panamera, but they are expanding. They are actually on track to start production at the end of this year, beginning of the next year, and they are hoping to ramp it up to 20,000 cars per year, which is actually a lot for the luxury car like that. It's going to start around mid 70s is what the rumor is, and that's what's going to happen. Now today they've announced that they doubled their investment into the electrifying their fleet. They are actually going to invest more than $6 billion into this. A lot of it will go into developing and launching of this car. A lot of it is going to go into actually some of their R&D of electric technologies, including the charging stations. Just to remind you that Porsche is Volkswagen Group is one of the investors of Ionity, is one of 3 fast charging networks, even faster than Tesla superchargers in Europe, that they are part of to get up to 400 chargers in Europe by 2020. So yeah, so now they're really serious about it. They're going to invest little chunks into also expanding the what they can build on the platform of Mission E. I believe Lamborghini is also trying to build something on that platform. So they are really getting serious. But of course, in the light of the whole Dieselgate animal testing thing by Volkswagen, I should remind you that Porsche is a subsidiary, or at least their parent company is the Volkswagen Group. So that's just FYI. All right, next story. Nissan in China. So as you know, a lot of companies are trying to get to China. It's becoming one of the largest electric car markets. China has been very, very friendly to electric cars, but at the same time, they are going to have a requirement that anybody who sells cars in China by the end of next year has to have at least 10% of their fleet to be electric or electric plug-in hybrids. Now they kind of was going to start this year, but they canceled that requirements. But next year it's 10%, and by 2020 it's 12%. So you know, car manufacturers are trying to flee there and to make sure that that happens. But as you know, when you want to do business in China as a car manufacturer, you have to partner up with a Chinese company that kind of gets to have your secrets in order to produce cars. Now, Nissan has already done this with a company called Dongfeng Motors. But now they've created another partnership with them, and they're vouching to produce 20 electric cars in the next couple of years in China. So those were going to be electric cars and electric plug-in hybrids. So, but they're going to sell it under the name Dongfeng Motors, not Nissan. But this is yet another investment that Nissan is making in China that's going to be becoming probably one of the leading electric car makers there very soon, possibly over Tesla. Which brings me to the next story, which is Tesla in Hong Kong. You know, Hong Kong was a really, really good place for Tesla to sell their electric cars, for anybody really to sell their electric cars. However, under pressure of some other manufacturers, they decided to phase out their incentives. So the cars became 50 to 80% more expensive, the electric cars, and the sales have completely plummeted. So now Tesla is kind of decreasing the staff that they had there. They were going to expand. They're actually going to contract because it is no longer sort of a friendly territory for them. So that is, you know, and the story here is really not Tesla. The story here is how much incentives are still, how much it is important to have incentives for electric cars. And this is kind of a sad story because, you know, we were kind of thinking about incentives may not be that necessary. Remember, at the end of last year here in the United States, there was a possibility that a $7,500 tax rebate might have been going away, and we were kind of saying, well, if it does, I think, you know, this industry is kind of finally standing on their feet, and they can walk and they can run and so forth. Well, this is one of those stories that are kind of opposite. It looks like we still do need the subsidiaries, subsidized electric car sales. So that is a little bit That is a little bit sort of sad. Let me move on to yet another story, and this one's also about Tesla. As you know, the Tesla factory had some problems last year. There were a lot of reports from the employees, and just a general report came out that their injury rate is much higher than the industry standard, and so Tesla committed to making sure that the problem is solved. And now they coming out with a report. They apparently hired a person who was in charge of kind of revamping how they do business at the factory, and they're happy to report that now their injury rate is actually within the industry standard. However, they believe they can make this factory one of the safest facilities, auto manufacturers facilities in the world. Now they hired a person who is in charge of it. They've hired some medical personnel and training personnel on site, so they can kind of train people and make sure that they address their medical needs. They've actually put a lot of different equipment for ergonomics reasons. From what I understand, a lot of injuries are because of that. So they've kind of readjusted some of their assembly lines so people don't have to strain their backs and necks as much. What's also interesting in the report, and this is something Electric.co points out as they did this story about this morning, is that Tesla decreased the number of staff that they need by 33% as far as those staff that specifically involved putting the cars together. So, it looks like that is a major improvement just on that front alone. That's kind of a side story there, but they're making a really good progress. It's good to see that they're taking this whole thing seriously. So it is good news about that. Now, I see the question here in the chat room about the Model 3 teardown that you guys been asking me about yesterday. I wasn't really taking it seriously as a story, but you guys keep asking, so I did a little bit of research. So Coog is asking me in the chat room, hi Alex, did you find out anything about the Tesla Model 3 teardown review? Okay, yes. So I did a little bit of research last night, this morning, and it looks like this company is being sponsored, and one of their main clients are the big three, the Ford, GM, and Chrysler. I know GM has a Chevy Bolt, but the rest of them do not really, are not even in the game. So, that all, and this is something that I specifically mentioned yesterday, that is a concern when you have all of this sort of a very non-electric car friendly companies, maybe GM aside, being your clients, and then you kind of do this tear down on Model 3 and say that, well, this is complete crap. Now, there are some concerns there that I've addressed that I think, are worth looking into. Now, they're saying that there are gaps into the panels. And by the way, here's how I know it's a little bit of BS, is because, they were just taking cheap shots at Tesla. And when you do that, you just look amateur, right? They say, well, there are gaps that you can see all the way from Mars, obviously, talking about Elon Musk trying to get to Mars with his SpaceX program. So that's how I know this is amateur BS. But there are some concerns that they've had that I really do believe they need to be addressed. If it really is not possible to get out of the car in an emergency situation from the rear doors, and you have to kind of crawl from the back, that's something that Tesla really needs to address. And any kind of type of safety issues and so forth. So I'm hoping Tesla gonna address this if those are really valid. But overall, I'm very skeptical about this. But I'm glad they did it. If even one thing that comes out of it is true and needs to be taken care of, and Tesla does, I think it's a win for everybody. Nice shirt. Can't see the bottom. Can we see the bottom, please? Says Marcus in the chat room. Yes. Says my car needs a lawyer. It's been charged with battery. And by the way, also in the description of this video, you can find a link to where you can buy this shirt. It's actually one of my favorite. I designed this myself kind of as a, kind of funny t-shirts, but then I figured if you guys want one, you can sell it through, I could sell it through that, a Spreadshirt, which is actually a pretty reputable company. So everybody who wants one can get that. All right, guys, once again, so many news, didn't expect to have 5-6 stories to cover, but nevertheless, it's always fun. Tomorrow, of course, as always, I'll be here at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Other than that, have a great afternoon, and remember to stay charged.